I would put BJ against any 155-pounder that ever lived.
Yep.
The Prodigy rocked him. BJ Penn has done it. He's got the choke. He's done it. BJ Penn is the UFC lightweight champion.
BJ is too tough for his own good.
Whose job is it to tell him? Family and friends, I guess?
No one's job.
We can't let the fighter decide.
This man should not be fighting, and this man should not be in a cage.
You have to have some level of respect to the commitment and the determination for BJ Penn to dismantle his legacy in such a rapid way.
BJ Penn's UFC career is over.
There are some people out there who have criticized you for continuing to give him fights.
Yep.
Then you see videos come out of him in an altercation in Hawaii.
But after what I saw, he needs to focus on his personal life and get himself together. He won't fight again.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
How
That's a wrap.
Surprise, surprise. The king is back.
Penn wasn't just a fighter, he was a trailblazer, the only man to ever compete in 6 different weight classes. At a time when lighter weight classes were often overlooked, he became the first man in UFC history after Randy Couture to capture gold in 2 different weight classes, finding his success at lightweight and welterweight. This feat alone cements his place among the all-time greats. But while the peaks of his career are legendary, his decline tells a very different story. From the highs of being a world champion to the lows of a record-breaking losing streak, Penn's journey encapsulates both the glory and the perils of professional fighting. BJ Penn's journey to MMA greatness begins in the lush islands of Hawaii, where his story of raw talent and relentless ambition took root.
I don't know where I became a fighter. I don't know how it happened, but I remember I started fighting all the guys about my size around town. Then I started getting more gutsy and fighting with more people. But I remember talking to a girl one day, we were just hanging out, and I was like, oh, so-and-so, he's the toughest of all the little guys. And she's like, no way, you're the toughest of all the little guys. And I'm like, really, me? I'm tough?
Born and raised in Hilo, Penn grew up in a culture deeply connected to fighting spirit and pride.
As kids, we knew nothing about working out, how to do it right, so we'd probably work out once a month. We'd lift weights, we had a little weight room downstairs, and then we'd run to the end of the road and run back. And we would think that was the best training you could ever do.
A culture that would define his approach to the sport.
So who would have ever thought that when he started buying those wrestling magazines at the age of 4 and really had those role models like Hulk Hogan and Rocky Balboa, that it would lead him to be such, I believe, one of the best fighters in the world.
Unlike most prodigies, Penn didn't end up tapping into the world of martial arts until his teenage years.
I didn't know what I was gonna do in my life, you know? I would see one of my older brothers, I'd drink beer at the beach every day, and I'm thankful and happy that his name is Tom Callis. He introduced me to jiu-jitsu. He kept asking my father, hey, could you tell your boy come down? And then my dad's like, BJ, just go once. He keeps asking me, and if you go, I'll tell him you don't like it. So I went down, I got choked out, and I got arm locked in, and I said, with this, I could be the man in Hilo. I could learn, you know.
However, once he put on his gi, his natural gifts would flourish. In just 3 years, Penn earned his black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under the guidance of Andre Pederneiras.
People ask me, they say, how did you get a black belt in 3 years? Was it desire? Was it the dedication? Was it drive? I always look at them and say, no, it was fun.
You had fun.
I had fun.
To grasp the significance of this feat, consider that the average practitioner spends over a decade working toward a black belt, and even achieving it in under 10 years is considered extraordinary. Penn didn't just stop at earning his black belt. In 2000, he etched his name into the sport's history books by becoming the first non-Brazilian to win the World Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Championship in the black belt division.
For the people that don't know, BJ Penn is the first American to win the Black Belt World Championships in Brazil, the Mundials, in 2000, correct?
You won the Mundials 3 years in. For people that don't understand how crazy that is, first of all, it's crazy to be able to get your black belt in 3 years. Then to win the Mundials as a black belt after 3 years of training. There's only one guy that ever did that. That's BJ Penn. That was wild.
Penn shattered barriers and solidified his place as a true prodigy. This remarkable achievement catapulted him into the spotlight and would ping him on mainstream radars, marking the birth of the legend known as the Prodigy. But BJ Penn wasn't content with mastering one discipline. The fire to compete against the best led him to transition into mixed martial arts.
Javier Mendez was in San Jose. So I remember going there one day, and me and him just clicked right away. But he was like, hey, you want me to punch the mitts? I'm like, okay. I started hitting the mitts, and he goes, you can hit hard. You could be a champion. They were with me my first 4 or 5 fights, but that's kind of what got me in.
In 2001, he signed with the UFC, making an explosive debut that showcased his raw potential, putting down Joey Gilbert in just the first round. Fans were immediately captivated by his aggressive, no-nonsense style, a blend of precision striking and his world-class grappling skills. A significant factor in shaping early dominance was his training at Nova União, a camp renowned for producing versatile and aggressive fighters. His ability to seamlessly mix jiu-jitsu with striking was rare for the time, and it would quickly turn him into one of the most exciting prospects in the UFC. In his debut year as a professional fighter, Penn delivered 2 more stunning first-round knockouts against elite opponents Din Thomas and Caol Uno. At the time, both Thomas and Uno were widely regarded as 2 of the best lightweights in the sport.
You burst on the scene, then they threw Dean Thomas at you.
That's right. So, he was the lineal champ.
So BJ knees him, knocks him out, blows a kiss to the fucking cameras. Unbelievable.
Dean was an animal. Right before I got Dean with the knee, like I fought all kinds of people just in Hawaii. Like I never really fought like a black guy before. He was so strong, Dean. Man, he's a beast.
And Penn's dominant performances against them left no doubt about his potential.
The next fight, I believe, is Caol Uno. He ran across the cage and he steamrolled them.
Serious factor for Uno.
By the time he stepped into the octagon for just his 4th fight, Penn had already earned a title shot, with many proclaiming him the top 155-pound fighter in the world.
You added your own flavor to a lot of shit, and one of the things that you did early on that captured a lot of people was your dexterity of your legs. Because you have crazy flexible legs. And when you would trap guys in your legs, you could see that to them, like, this was a new experience.
I never knew about that until I did jiu-jitsu, you know. I never knew I was flexible.
Watch this. This is insane. He just throws his leg behind his head. That's crazy. People don't understand how hard that is to do.
He would challenge for the title against champion Jens Pulver at UFC 35, and with many firmly believing it to be the crowning of BJ Penn, he would come short of Pulver's experience and skill, losing by majority decision. The contest would cruelly remind fans that this was only Penn's 4th pro MMA fight. Although having tasted defeat for the first time, Penn was still young, and there was little challenge or doubt that he would jump back up very soon. 2 wins over Matt Serra and Paul Creighton would take him more than just 2 steps up the ladder, and he found himself back in the title picture, taking on Caol Uno in a rematch for the vacant lightweight championship. What followed was a tightly contested 5-rounder that ended in a draw, leaving the lightweight division without a champion, and both the fighters and fans greatly disappointed. Following the draw with Uno, Penn's conquest took him outside the UFC and into the global MMA scene for a taste.
Your brother was mostly running a fight organization? He launched Rumble on the Rock. Were you a part of that?
He was the guy behind it with all the black and white and the numbers and everything. But
no, that was amazing promotion.
It was.
I was fighting. I had a few fights there. There was that tournament.
Here we were doing MMA in Hawaii. You remember how big MMA got?
Rumble on the Rock, son.
Yeah.
I remember you put on your own promotion. That was fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Rumble on the Rock was the shit, dude.
It was.
You had some fucking great fights.
We did. We had Tank Abbott. We had everybody in there.
At Rumble on the Rock 4, he faced the highly regarded Takanori Gomi, a fighter many considered one of the top lightweights in the world. In a highly anticipated clash, Penn delivered a masterful performance, submitting Gomi with a rear naked choke in the 3rd round to become the Rumble on the Rock 155-pound champion. The victory by submission was a sheer reminder of Penn's submission and grappling game that some may have forgotten about.
You know what happened? Elite XC came in, bought everybody up, and then they went down and they crashed.
It just people saw money in it.
A guy shows up and he says, hey BJ, I'm here from the state. We're here to regulate you guys. And I'm thinking, after we got our faces smashed in for the last 20 years, now you show up, now it looks like there's a little money here. And then they just tanked the whole thing. Ronald Reagan's best line, me and Lorenzo talked about it, the 9 most terrifying words in the English language. I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
But it was when BJ Penn returned at UFC 46 in 2004 for another title shot that he would forever etch his name into MMA history. As an underdog, he faced the seemingly unstoppable Matt Hughes for the welterweight title. Against all odds, Penn shocked the world, submitting Hughes in the 1st round with a rear naked choke. The win not only earned him the welterweight belt, but solidified his reputation as a fighter who could overcome even the toughest challenges, coming off 2 previous failed title shots. Penn's career then took an unconventional turn as he stepped away from the UFC to compete in other promotions, thus being stripped of the title.
You left the UFC for a short time period. Was there a falling out with Dana or?
Yeah.
So it was a money dispute. So
yeah, it was so we ended up in Japan. Japan was paying good money. Couldn't believe the money they were paying.
Rather than wanting to cherry-pick his challengers and sit back, he sought out new challenges, facing elite fighters across the globe. The truth is, Penn just wanted to fight, and in 2004 he joined K1's MMA promotion and said to hell with the conventional script. His debut would see him submit Duane Ludwig in the first round. Instead of staying within his natural lightweight division, the 5'9" fighter not only remained at welterweight, but also moved up to middleweight to take on Rodrigo Gracie, pushing him to a decision win. The challenge of size didn't stop there. In his 12th professional fight, Penn pushed the limits of competition by stepping into an open-weight bout against Lyoto Machida, who would later become the UFC light heavyweight champion. Despite giving up significant size and weight, Penn embraced the challenge, ultimately losing the 3-round contest in Japan.
BJ, when you were on top, you were one of the baddest motherfuckers on earth. You really were. You were a guy who went all the way up to heavyweight to fight Lyoto Machida. You did some wild shit, dude, and you were strangling a lot of fucking people, man. You were a scary motherfucker, dude. You were a scary motherfucker. You were tuned in.
It has nothing to do with who's the best. It's who wants it the most. That's what it is.
For Penn, the numbers on a scale or a record sheet were meaningless. He fought simply for the love of the sport. That fearless mentality and willingness to face anyone, anywhere, endeared him to fans worldwide.
Nothing else mattered to me in my life at that time than being the toughest and most skilled martial artist on the planet.
After an adventurous 4-fight stint with K1, BJ Penn would return to the UFC to mark the beginning of one of the most celebrated chapters of his career. Penn made his highly anticipated return at UFC 58 in 2006, where he faced rising star Georges St. Pierre. At the time, St. Pierre was already gaining attention as one of the most promising talents in MMA, but had yet to claim UFC gold. The matchup pitted Penn's legendary skills and grit against the younger fighter's athleticism and evolving game. Penn would crack GSP well, but over 15 minutes, a strategic approach from St. Pierre allowed him to edge out a split-decision victory, handing Penn a close but frustrating loss. Despite the loss, Penn found himself thrust back in the welterweight title picture just 6 months later, facing Matt Hughes in a highly anticipated rematch at UFC 63. This time, Hughes effectively neutralized Penn's offense, limiting him to just 17 significant strikes. In the third round, Hughes became the first fighter to finish Penn, earning a decisive TKO victory and solidifying his reign as champion. With back-to-back losses, Penn entered uncharted territory, the first losing streak of his career. This slump sparked questions about his dedication and whether his motivation to achieve championship glory still burned as intensely as before. However, Penn quickly turned the page. Just months after his loss to Hughes, he was announced as a coach for the Ultimate Fighter Season 5, pitted against his old rival, Jens Pulver. The pairing not only reignited their rivalry, but also offered Penn an opportunity to refocus his career in the lightweight division, where he had always been a natural fit. When the season culminated, Penn and Pulver faced off in a long-awaited rematch. This time, Penn left no doubt about his superiority, dominating Pulver and securing a second-round submission victory. The win was a defining moment for Penn, marking his triumphant return to the lightweight division and silencing doubts about his commitment to the sport. It also set the stage for one of the most dominant runs in lightweight history. Following his triumphant return to the lightweight division, BJ Penn captured UFC gold in his next bout at UFC 80 in 2008. Penn delivered a masterclass, submitting Joe Stevenson via rear naked choke in the second round to become the third UFC 155-pound champ in history.
UFC 80, Stevenson, that bloody fight that you fought, blood everywhere.
Is that when he licked the glove?
Yeah. Wait, is that who you were fighting, Stevenson?
You had to do
UFC
something
80,
to get the guys interested.
My God.
That right there, ladies and gentlemen, is the greatest lightweight in the history of the sport.
The victory, highlighted by Penn's precision and dominance, cemented his status as one of the sport's all-time greats. Penn's first title defense came against former lightweight champion Sean Shirk at UFC 84 in what was a highly anticipated showdown. Penn's striking was on full display as he used his jab and relentless pressure to pick Shirk apart before finishing the fight with a perfectly timed flying knee and follow-up punches. With this win, Penn further enforced his reign at lightweight and set the stage for a blockbuster rematch with Georges St. Pierre, a super fight which was hyped as one of the biggest fights in UFC history. The rematch took place at UFC 94, carrying historic stakes. With a win, Penn would become the first UFC fighter to simultaneously hold titles in 2 divisions. However, the fight didn't go as planned for Penn. St. Pierre's size, wrestling, and cardio overwhelmed him, and after 4 rounds of relentless pressure, Penn's corner stopped the fight, giving St. Pierre the TKO victory. Penn managed only 16 significant strikes while being controlled for over 14 minutes, a testament to St. Pierre's dominance. The aftermath of the fight brought controversy, as Penn's team accused St. Pierre of gaining an unfair advantage by using illegal amounts of Vaseline during the bout, sparking the infamous Greasegate scandal.
I still, I still want my fair fight, man. I didn't get my fair fight. I want my fair shot.
Is there any intention by these guys to create an unfair fight? Or, and I was wondering what you guys thought about that.
I think BJ Penn tried to discredit me for my win.
While the controversy lingered for a time, Penn chose to move forward and refocus on his lightweight legacy.
About the whole GSP situation, besides all that stuff, that's not what I'm focused on.
Returning to the 155-pound division, Penn went on an extraordinary all-time run, defending his title against Kenny Florian at UFC 101 and Diego Sanchez at UFC 107 to round off 2009. He submitted Florian in the 4th round and utterly dominated Sanchez to a doctor stoppage in the 5th round. These performances set a new standard for the lightweight division, with Penn breaking the record for the most consecutive title defenses at 155 pounds.
You kept getting better and better. Like when I see Sean Shirk fight and Diego Sanchez fight, I'm like, I put that BJ Penn up against almost anybody who's ever lived.
That was the hungriest.
You could see it in those days.
Heading into UFC 112, Penn was riding high. The Greasegate controversy was largely in the rearview mirror, and his dominance over Florian and Sanchez had established him as one of the most feared champions in UFC history. Although losses to St. Pierre prevented him from claiming pound-for-pound supremacy, Penn's complete control over his division suggested a reign that could last for years. All that stood in his way was another challenger, a lesser-known but dangerous fighter. For many, it seemed Penn had finally reached the pinnacle of his career. The Prodigy was in full bloom, and the lightweight division belonged to him.
I always tell people you have to judge a fighter by the heights they reached, not where they fell afterwards or the up-and-coming fights. You got to judge them by the heights that they reached.
BJ Penn's decline began in 2010 with a pair of losses to Frankie Edgar. At UFC 112, Penn entered as the dominant lightweight champion, but Edgar's speed, footwork, and strategy allowed him to claim a unanimous decision victory and take the title from Penn. In their rematch later that year at UFC 118, Edgar solidified his win with another unanimous decision, signaling the very end of Penn's reign at 155 pounds. This marked a pivotal moment in Penn's career, as momentum shifted away from the once dominant champion.
BJ looked like he broke in like the 2nd round of that fight. He broke and was like, what am I doing here?
Obviously, he's a great fighter. I mean, what does he have to do to recover from this? I mean, this is pretty devastating because this was supposed to be his, when he dropped back down, this was supposed to be his weight class.
I agree, man. And you know what? Who knows? We'll see where it goes from here.
Everybody has their moment. The truth, once you win the belt already, the first, second, already 50% of the why already drops. And now you gotta go out there and just keep going. And then it's your identity. And then you're like, you lost the belt. Oh, where is it? I want to get it back now. And then
it's the chase,
highest highs and the lowest low. It's my precious, right? That's my precious.
Yeah.
In the years that followed, it all seemed to go downhill. Penn struggled to maintain his form, particularly in attempts to compete at higher weight classes. His return to welterweight brought mixed results, including a hard-fought draw against John Fitch and decisive losses to younger, more dynamic fighters like Nick Diaz and Rory McDonald. These bouts highlighted the growing gap between Penn and the evolving MMA landscape, where athletes displayed increasingly comprehensive skill sets and physical advantages.
I don't know if BJ is capable of competing at the level that he's competing at right now when he's losing to these guys. I don't know if he is because it doesn't seem like he's capable of it.
Between 2011 and 2019, Penn would falsely claim retirement several times as he suffered an extended losing streak, setting a record for the most consecutive losses in UFC history at 7 Ls. Penn's attempts to rekindle his success through comebacks became increasingly controversial.
I want BJ Penn to retire. BJ is too tough for his own good. BJ might not be knocked out, but the shots that BJ took would have knocked out a normal human being. He's had his head bounced off the canvas like a basketball by Matt Hughes, by Georges St. Pierre. BJ Penn has left that octagon looking like a fucking alien. He's too tough for his own good. He's taking a lot of damage, and I don't want to see him take any more.
motivation, definitely, I want to go get that 145-pound belt. That's definitely a huge motivation for me. I believe, with Greg Jackson's help, I can get that done. And I believe that I will be able to walk away the only man with 3 titles. You don't train as hard. You're
just not in love with it anymore.
But you try to put a goal like, if I could be the first guy to get 3 world titles, so you try to put a goal in your head that makes sense.
Right.
And then you keep falling up short and you're just like,
Fans and analysts alike began questioning the wisdom of his continued participation in the sport.
The thrill of BJ when he was in his prime is probably indescribable.
That's what makes these stories so great when they're in their prime and you're watching them on the come up, and it's so special. But it's also what makes this sport so fucking heartbreaking. He's lost, 6 in a row?
Yeah. He's not who he used to be.
No, obviously, not. But
I don't even know where his head's at.
I feel like if I'm Dana, I'm going, hey man, I'm doing you guys a solid. You can't fight here anymore. Whose job is it to tell him? Family and friends, I guess?
No one's job.
Well, you can't let the fighter decide.
I don't think he should be competing at the highest level of the sport. But the argument is he's not getting crushed. He's not getting sparked out. He's not getting knocked out. He's just not as good as he used to be. No, it's not a good argument. Why do you think he's still at the UFC?
Because he's still a draw, maybe? I don't know. It's the most heartbreaking thing in sports, I think.
I agree. After you get in the late 30s, it's like there's something going on, clearly, for most people.
Yeah.
But for guys that were on the sauce, that's where it got weird because they could keep going.
Yeah, that's where it got weird, and that's where we got confused, and that's why I thought it was a career. I'm over here taking the light force. You know what I mean?
You fought natural at a time where very few people did, and we both know that. It was just a fact. Everybody knew it.
BJ Penn would grace the octagon for the final time in 2019 at UFC 237, where he lost to Clay Guida by unanimous decision.
When you get old, you start getting bruised. And
when did you feel like physically things were different? Around what year?
32, 33. Well, I started looking, when I started getting bruises, I think. I remember when I started kind of getting bruised up and stuff, and I think I was in Australia. I just fought Fitch. My face was busted up because I couldn't even move in the 3rd round, and he just kind of sat on me and beat me up. My friend, it was Hoyt actually, he goes, hey, come here, and he filled the whole sink with ice so I could dip my face inside. And I thought, it's the first time anybody ever did this for me. I might be getting old. But I always say, for any fighter, it's the miles. It's not the age. It's the miles that you put in your body.
Dana White initially stated that Penn would not fight in the UFC again. However, both Penn and Nick Lentz expressed interest in settling their long-standing feud in a final fight.
I think this caught a lot of people by surprise. They didn't think that BJ would get another fight in the UFC, but here we are. He is getting another fight, and he's fighting Nick the Carney Lentz.
Their rivalry dated back several years, beginning when Lentz, alongside coach Mike Dolce, criticized Penn's training methods and weight cuts. This led to ongoing tensions between the two, with Penn even calling Lentz out publicly in an open letter. By mid-2019, reports surfaced that the UFC was actively planning the fight, with Dana White agreeing to give Penn one last farewell bout against Lentz.
This man should not be fighting. And this man should not be in a cage, whether it's Bellator, UFC, Ryzen, One, should not be fighting. Now, if you feel indebted to him, get him on the payroll like you did with Chuck and Big Nog. Do something like that.
Why are you choosing to promote another?
Because he terrorized me for friggin' a week and wouldn't stop texting me for 3 days straight and, talked me into it. So I've voiced my concerns. I've known BJ Penn since he was 19 years old, and BJ walked me through a million reasons why he needs this fight and why he has to have it, and he talked me into it. We're doing this. He's promised me that win, lose, or draw, he will retire after this fight.
And for a fighter, one of the most difficult decisions, I would imagine, is knowing when to get out.
I had the hardest time. I just had the hardest time walking away from that attention, from the attention of the toughest man in the world attention.
This is irresponsible, and anybody who cares about BJ Penn would step in and stop him from doing this. And as far as this business about one more and one more and one more, and I just need one more, he's been given 7 tries, and it's spawned over 5 years. There is no more. This is not the same person, and he should not be in there. I like this matchup because it came with a caveat from Dana White directly to BJ Penn. Win, lose, or draw, this is your last fight.
Unfortunately, BJ Penn's downfall wouldn't just be confined to the octagon. Penn's legacy as a fighter is undeniable, but his life outside the cage has been marred by a series of legal issues and controversies in the late stages of his career. As his MMA career declined and concluded, Penn found himself repeatedly in the headlines for the wrong reasons, facing allegations of domestic violence, bar fights, and DUI-related offenses. In 2019, Penn's longtime partner, Sheilin Waiwa, filed a restraining order against him. alleging over a decade of verbal and physical abuse. She claimed Penn's erratic and threatening behavior endangered her and their children. While Penn denied the allegations, the situation cast a dark shadow over his legacy and raised concerns about his mental and emotional state. Penn was involved in multiple street fights in Hawaii, with viral footage in August 2019 showing him getting knocked out in a bar brawl.
Oh my God. Stop it, guys. Hey, come on. Punch again. Stop. Keep on. Get out. Stop it.
I'm like, no, I don't want to fight. We're friends, everything's cool, this and that. So he even walks outside and I'm like, this is silly. I'm going to go get him, calm him down, come back inside. We'll come enjoy the concert. We got some other friends there. I walk outside to go give the guy a hug. And then he hits me twice. And I'm like, oh, no, calm down. And then he hits me again. And then finally my adrenaline picked up because he was hitting me so much. I'm like, oh, go ahead, hit me again. He hit me and he hit me good. Knocked me down, and then when I got back up, he tried it again, and then I just had to defend myself already.
Now, Babcock, you've spoken with the other fighter, Chemo. What's his side of the story?
Completely different than what BJ says. He says that he's friends with BJ. They were hanging out, and he says BJ can't handle his alcohol, and he just drank too much, and then they got into a fight. BJ just being a drunk dude.
Yeah. You look at BJ, so accomplished, talented, likable, handsome, memorable, well-known. I don't know if I've seen anybody try quite this hard, and you have to have some level of respect to the commitment and the determination for BJ Penn to dismantle his legacy in such a rapid way. Just being out at a bar at 40 years old with children is a little bit weird. Why are you out? Who are those guys that you were with? They ain't your friends. I can tell you that much. Those aren't your friends that think it's cool to go out on the town with BJ Penn and get drunk and end up in a fight. But at some point, that's got to stop. And at some point, it also feels like a cry for help.
Another incident weeks earlier showed him taking down and punching another man.
This is a separate incident from June. He also talked about this, and it's kind of the same thing where he was saying, I didn't start this. I was just trying to restrain the guy. He's saying, I got a lot of stuff going on in my personal life. I don't need this drama.
I saw it. All right, Doug. Just get him off him, though. Get him off him. B, let's go. B. Don't let him get me, bro. B, let's go. Get him off him. B. What? B. Oh, man. Oh, man. What are you doing? Hey, that's the boy. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. All right, my bad, dude. Don't do that. Fuck him. I'm killing him.
I don't understand why he keeps putting himself in situations.
Right. One's in an arrest, another one's a street fight, you're on top of it, another one's a street fight, and you're getting knocked out by a drunk guy with no training? I mean, is there anything that you could do with more of a resilient dedication to tarnishing your own reputation? And you're getting this from a guy that likes BJ Penn.
As a result, the UFC scrapped the matchup and officially released Penn in September 2019, bringing an end to his UFC career. It was clear the UFC would not welcome him back into the octagon.
There are some people out there who have criticized you for continuing to give him fights.
Yep.
Then you see videos come out of him, in an altercation in Hawaii. What were your thoughts when you saw those videos?
He won't fight again.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it. That's a wrap.
BJ Penn's UFC career is over. UFC President Dana White told ESPN he will not offer the 40-year-old another bout in the octagon after video showed Penn fighting on the streets of the Big Island. His friend was upset about something. He was just trying to calm him down, but his friend started hitting him.
I didn't love him continuing to fight anyway, but when you have the relationship that he and I have and he's getting me on the phone, begging me for another fight, it's hard for me to turn him down. But after what I saw on that video, BJ needs to focus on his personal life and get himself together. Listen, I don't want to sit here on TV and pick BJ Penn apart in his life and whatever. We all know what BJ Penn needs to do. Hopefully BJ Penn knows what BJ Penn needs to do. What I saw in that video was sad, and I love the kid. I hope he gets his life together. If BJ Penn needed me, all he's got to do is pick up the phone and ask.
Former UFC champion BJ Penn has been arrested for DUI.
In January 2021, Penn was arrested on a DUI charge. A year prior to that, he was also investigated for another reckless driving incident where he had lost control of his vehicle. Fortunately, no serious injuries resulted. But these charges were seriously not a good look for him. For fans who had once idolized Penn as an MMA legend, his legal troubles and public altercations were heartbreaking to witness. His repeated run-ins with the law painted a picture of a man struggling to find purpose after his fighting career. The lack of structure that once defined his training and competition seemed to have been replaced by reckless behavior, unchecked aggression, and substance abuse. While some pointed to potential CTE as a possible explanation for his erratic actions, a medical condition that BJ Penn completely labels a hoax, others viewed Penn's decline as an unfortunate consequence of a fighter who had been surrounded by enablers, never held accountable, and ultimately unable to walk away from the only life he had ever known. Penn eventually did manage to find some sort of mission and purpose following his post-career troubles. The once-known Prodigy set his sights on a different kind of battle: politics.
Are you done? Are you done fighting 100%?
I'm done.
You done?
I'm done 100%. It was hard for me to get out after being in there for 20 years. I mean, that's your identity.
Yeah.
And then I just got into trying to be a father, try to be around more, and then all this stuff happened, and I find myself in here. But I do think all the blood, all the tears, all the sweat was to prepare me for this.
In 2022, Penn announced his candidacy for governor of Hawaii.
Our system is broken, our government is broken, and I got a vision for a strong economy, great schools, and safe communities. You know, people ask me, they go, would you be running for office if this pandemic didn't happen? This is the straw that broke the camel's back. I've always noticed the problems here with the economy, how anti-business they are.
I know you, and I know you wouldn't do this unless you really felt like there was a need for change. You're not a guy that wants to be running the government. You're a guy who just doesn't want to be fucked with and pushed around. Have you thought about doing anything else other than this running for governor thing?
I just want to raise my kids, and they're growing so fast. I just want to be around and be around my mom now. She asked me to move in with her since my dad passed away.
However, his lack of political experience made it difficult for him to gain traction among mainstream voters. Despite his name recognition, Penn struggled in the Republican primary, finishing a distant second to Duke Aiona, a former lieutenant governor with far more political experience.
Did you ever run again?
My mom told me not to run because it's just a waste of you walking right into crossfire. Boom, boom, boom from both sides. But
so it's not worth it.
I mean, how do you win?
BJ Penn's contributions to the sport are undeniable. As a pioneer of the UFC's lighter weight classes, he helped bring legitimacy and visibility to divisions that were once overlooked. His accomplishments inspired countless fighters and laid the groundwork for the thriving lightweight and featherweight divisions we see today.
In the future, and people think about BJ Penn, I just want them to think that, here was a guy who gave everything he had for his career, for his life, gave his best shot, and gave whatever he could to any of his friends or people around him. And was as nice as he could be along the way. That'd be the best. One thing for sure, at 55 years old, BJ Penn's gonna be sitting in Hilo just like this.
How much earlier do you think the Prodigy should have retired? Where does he rank on your UFC Mount Rushmore? Let us know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to our channel and turn on those notifications.